Hello everyone, my name is Ernest Dollar and I'm director of the City of Raleigh Museum. And on today's show we have a special exhibit for us to explore. We have our first Smithsonian traveling exhibit, Beyond Bollywood, Indian Americans Shaped the Nation. This exhibit was produced by the Smithsonian Institution in 2014 and is starting to travel the country. We're fortunate to have it here at the City of Raleigh Museum until April 2017. Now this exhibit is groundbreaking for its time and explores the deep experience and history of Indian Americans in the United States, the culture, the history, and their impact on America's past. But for today's show, we wanted to tell you about one small person of Indian descent who came to Raleigh and how he shaped this city's history.
Your son wants to get a cat, but you're allergic. Do you A, prepare yourself, B, make the best of it,
C squared equals
25.
Good job!
or C, find a loophole? When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers, but that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
To be at peace with myself is the most prominent thing, and I am at peace with myself. I didn't deal this deck, I'm just playing the game. That's all. That's it. Meals on Wheels has given me a mode of freedom that I wouldn't have otherwise. And making sure they get the nutrition that I need, and it's a balanced meal. My name is Maurice McGriff. America, let's do lunch.
Drop off a hot meal and say hello. Volunteer by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
So as part of this touring Smithsonian exhibit, we wanted to tell Raleigh's story of its Indian community. And so the staff here at the City of Raleigh Museum made a pretty incredible discovery that sort of re-envisioned what we thought was the earliest origins of the Indian community. So I'm here with staff member Abby Jones, who made this incredible discovery. So Abby, please tell us this great story of how you discovered Raleigh's first Indian.
Sure. So when I started my research, initially I just wanted to learn more about the Indian community in Raleigh. And so I first started with good historical research, our archives. So I started at the state archives, and I quickly realized that it's more about what you are searching for, less so than the sources. So Indian was actually not a very good search, because that's a word that's been used to describe a couple different people groups throughout history. But I eventually realized that Hindu was a word that was used in the past to pretty much describe anyone from India. So once I found that word, I started searching through the archives, and I came across an article from 1940 in a local magazine called Our State, and it talked about a man, and it called him Raleigh's now famous Hindu. So I said to myself, I need to learn more about this man, and luckily the article gave a name. And it kind of described how he arrived in Raleigh. He came in 1926 on a student visa to attend NC State. And it also mentioned during this time, 1940, he was experiencing a lot of citizenship troubles. He didn't have the avenues to become a United States citizen, even though he had married a local woman, Lena from Sampson County. He had started a family, he started a job, but he couldn't find a way to become a citizen. So it talked about his citizenship struggles. But before I got into that, I needed to learn more about his origins. And so since I knew he was a student, then I turned to NC State's special collections and searched through there. And once you have a name, it's a lot easier to find out about that person. And so I found his picture in the NC State yearbook from 1926. It was called the Agramech, and it said his name, it said where he was from, Pune City, India, and he was also an electrical engineer. That's what he studied at NC State.
Well, what was his name?
Ram Krishna Jivitode, or Jivitodi, but everyone called him Jivi.
So based on that, what we did to sort of help find more information about Jivi is we went to the internet, and with a name like Jivitodi, we found it pretty rare that there'd be a lot of folks with that name. And sure enough, we found it.
We did. So we were able to reach out to a couple of his family members who were related to him. And once they heard that we were interested in his story and interested in learning more about his story, because from the research that we had, we knew about how he arrived in Raleigh. We knew that he eventually left, but we didn't know how his story ended. So that was something that we definitely wanted to know. And so they were more than happy. John and his wife from New Jersey drove down to Raleigh about a week later after we contacted them, and were just so willing to provide us with more information. So we got a lot of information from them. We learned about the ending of his story, but we also got a lot of things from his life. They brought numerous boxes of artifacts relating to his life also. So I think that's an interesting aspect of this story, that we not only used archival sources, things from the past, but we also used the memories and knowledge of people who are currently connected to his story.
Right, and they brought us a great collection of objects which we have on display as part of the Beyond Bollywood exhibit. So I guess we'll start with probably this early piece. Can you tell us about this?
Sure. So this is a family photograph, and there's actually John right there. He was Jivi's son, and he was the one who came and visited us and shared his story with us. And this photograph was actually taken around the time that they needed to leave the United States, and they actually ended up going to Jamaica and living there for a couple years before they then returned.
Right, so Jivi was actually not an Indian citizen, but a British citizen, and so this is another wonderful piece, his actual passport.
Correct, yeah, so he had a British passport because he was a British citizen, so that's what he would have used to get that student visa and then to travel when he could no longer be in the United States. And we actually have a couple artifacts from his early life, so things that he brought from India to the United States when he came here the first time. So we have this India to English dictionary, and we also have a hat that would have been used for celebrations or special occasions. So those are things that he kept with him that were from where he came from, his hometown.
But my favorite object they brought us was this. So we knew that Jivi was forced to leave the country because of immigration issues, and people in Raleigh had developed quite an affinity for Jivi and wanted to keep him.
Yeah, so when you learn his story, you see that he was really a man who might have been the only Indian that people in Raleigh knew, but he studied here, he had a family here, he started a career here, and really made a lot of friends and had a very strong sense of community and attachment to Raleigh. And you see the community of Raleigh, they really rallied behind him when he was having these citizenship issues, and they fought on his behalf for him to remain in the United States. They contacted state senators, the president. They really tried as much as they could to give him an avenue to remain here. And this is an autograph book that they gave to the family when they left for Jamaica, and it has a lot of different messages from close family friends, people from the community, just kind of a well-wish gift to give to them as they left and started a different chapter of their life.
Right, and there's such emotional prose that the people in Raleigh put in there. So would you read this one for us, because this is one of my favorites?
Right, so we selected this page because it has a really good message, and it's a woman who is writing to Jivi, and she calls him my dear Jivi, and one of the lines that she writes towards the end is, "You have done much to make life in Raleigh and State College much easier for any of your fellow Indians who may chance to follow you here." So I think that really speaks to not only his character, but also the relationships he made and the impact that he made on Raleigh, particularly not only for his own family and himself, but for the subsequent Indian community who followed in his footsteps.
Right, and he returned from Jamaica to Raleigh and ended up dying here in the 80s, so he is still with us today. But perhaps one of my favorite objects that the Jivitoads brought is over here, which is beautiful. So let's take a look at that. So here it is, perhaps my favorite part of the Jivitoad collection we have here on display in the museum. It's a wonderful piece. So can you tell us a little more about this, Abby?
Sure. In one of those boxes of artifacts that John brought to us that belonged to his father was a portrait, a photograph, a full-length photograph of Lena, Jivi's wife, and she was wearing a sari. And besides just the sari being beautiful, it also got us interested because I think that photograph really speaks to Jivi and Lena's relationship and how, even though they came from different cultures, they both adopted and embraced important aspects of each other's culture.
East meets West. coast.
Exactly. So it speaks to their relationship and how they valued each other, but it's also a really interesting artifact, this sari. So we thought to ourselves, maybe it still exists somewhere. So John didn't have it, but it turns out that Jivi's granddaughter, Jill, had that sari from the photograph in her possession. So she sent it to the museum. And we were able to put it on display. And a little bit of background about the sari is the sari is traditional Indian dress, comes from India. It's worn by Indian women, and there are different styles of saris. This one's a little bit more formal, which would why it would make sense that she had her portrait done in it. And it's actually just one singular piece of fabric. It's 7 to 9 feet long, and it's wrapped around the body and pinned in various areas in order to create a dress.
That's amazing, and I know that we had a very interesting time getting this on our mannequin. And perhaps my favorite part of this whole ensemble are these beautiful shoes, which are tiny, 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 tiny. But again, it's really great for us to have this photograph and the actual object in the photograph to tell her side of the Jivitoad story.
Here's to the things that can keep us safe. Those we use all the time with hardly a thought. Those that are silently standing by to save our lives. And now, those that we carry with us everywhere we go. Many mobile devices will now bring you wireless emergency alerts, real-time information directly from local sources you know and trust. With the unique sound and vibration, you'll be in the know, wherever you are.
The Jivitoad story is an incredible chapter in Raleigh's history, but the Beyond Bollywood exhibit tells us about Indians' experience as a national chapter in America's past. So we hope you come down to the City of Raleigh Museum until April 2nd of 2017 and experience this exhibit for yourself. Learn more about the Jivitoad story and learn more about Raleigh's history. So I'm Ernest Dollar, and see you in the museum.